Today on the podcast, I'm lucky to have Urban Dog Studio, an amazing local pair of photographers who have a great studio and have built a wonderful environment to help other artists flourish around and within. That is Laurie, Elmer, and Knicki, Knowlton. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, we're so excited to be here with you.
Oh, good. So I'm actually in their studio right now in Pinellas Park. And we spent hours chatting about podcasts because they have a wonderful one called Let's Bark About It Tampa Bay. But I'm just curious so much about their whole journey from starting in photography and turning it into like a physical studio space. So do you guys want to kind of just take turns, tell me a bit about your first time you picked up a camera and when you decided you wanted to start making money with it?
So I had been doing landscape and wildlife photography for a long time. And then in the early 2000s, my husband and his partner, my husband's a veterinarian, and his partner were building a new practice. And they asked me, because I have an art degree, to decorate the lobby, pick out the artwork for the lobby. But knowing that they had different tastes and also knowing that I was going to have to please the team, the staff members too, it was sort of daunting. And I didn't want anybody to be mad, so I was racking my brain. What could I do that everybody would be on board with? And of course, everybody there loves animals and loves pets. So I thought, well, I'll just photograph everybody's pets. I figured I could just leverage my photography experience for pet photography. I didn't realize at the time what I was getting myself into. It was a pretty big learning curve because I'd never done studio photography before. So I had to figure it out. And the resources online weren't like they are today.
Yeah. No tutorials.
No
YouTube tutorials.
So I was like scouring for books and magazines and just kind of winging it too.
What was that first studio then? Was it?
I didn't have a studio. I
Okay.
used the lobby at my husband's office, my garage, team members' homes. I went to their houses.
Tell them about your light setup.
I bought shop lights from Home Depot and I used fabric from Joann Fabrics.
So you're not supposed to use shop lights from Home
Yeah,
Depot?
it's not
Well, you can. I mean, my first set was shop lights from Home Depot as well.
It gets really, really hot.
Oh,
And
yeah. Okay.
not a good thing. It's probably a fire hazard. And the quality of the light is number one. I know this sounds crazy, but it's almost not bright enough. It's not the same that you would get when you're using a flash. Now, if you're into continuous light and you want it to be really sweaty and you don't care that the color temperature of the light is really, really bad, knock yourself out. Go for it. You know what? And that's all you have. You use what you have, So it can be done. And some of those photographs are still hanging on those walls more than 20 years later. So, so I'm not saying don't do it. Yeah. It probably wasn't ideal, but I did learn how to use light by doing that.
Okay.
Now I did have some experience already using flash. So like the camera mounted flash or just off camera flash. So I kind of knew a little bit about light, but I didn't have enough light to light these animals. But anyway, that was sort of my first foray. Clients started seeing those on the wall. They asked me if I would photograph their pets. I agreed to do it. And then I don't exactly remember how it transpired other than I had another friend who was a photographer. We were in a critique group together and he was doing some editorial work for a magazine and invited me to submit, put me in touch with the editor. And then somehow I just sort of accidentally became an editorial pet photographer. So I had to upgrade my process, had to buy real equipment, and then was photographing for Dog Fancy, Cat Fancy, Dogs USA, a whole bunch of different pet titles, and was doing that and doing it successfully for quite a while. I was about to leave my corporate job. And then I noticed one by one, those magazines started falling off. Like the titles were just shutting down. And that was probably about 2014 when all of those magazines just started to disappear, as did every magazine in the whole world. Right. So I think Dog Fancy is still out there and there are a few others, but unfortunately they primarily get their images from Getty and they're buying microstock. So it sort of went away as a great business model. So I was still doing portrait work, but I kind of stepped back from it. But was still doing some shoots when people would ask for it. Wasn't doing a whole lot of marketing. And then around that time, Knicki ended up moving to Florida. And we've been friends.
We've been friends since
the early 2000s.
Early, yeah.
So we met online.
We did meet. So our origin story.
Love at first sight. No.
Yes, we met online in a photo forum and made quick friends and realized that we both kind of have the same tastes. I would have the same I would post glasses or something, and she would I have those. Okay. So we made quick friends, and my dad lives in Orlando, and I was in Oregon, and I was in Orlando for a visit, and I said, hey, where are you in Florida? Maybe I'll come out and see you. So I took the drive, my first drive from Orlando to Tampa, and met her out at the beach, and we got along great. We had the best time.
We had so much fun.
We went down to the beach, and there was this old recliner and an older gentleman that jumped in it, and we took photos of that. And
a German tourist in a recliner on North Reddington Beach.
Oh, yeah.
So, go figure.
It's a great story. Yeah. And then I went back to Oregon, and at some point, obviously moved to Florida, and called her up again and said, hey, I moved to Bradenton. Are you anywhere near me? I don't have any friends.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I drove up to St. Pete, and I love St. Pete, so here I am.
Yeah, and we just started shooting together. So I had I had some shoots just here and there, and Knicki would come up and assist, and or she would have something, and so we just started working together and realized that we had this really great sort of symbiotic shooting relationship, and it was very easy for us to go back and forth. So sometimes she would assist and I would shoot, and sometimes I would assist and she would shoot, and we could sort of read each other's minds, even though our shooting styles are very different.
Very different.
It just worked out really well. And then one day we were doing
headshots.
We were doing some headshots at an animal hospital, and also photographing some wildlife. One of the techs.
Oh yeah. There was little baby possums and a bird.
Was rehabbing, and we just had a great time. And we're like, this is what we should be doing, because we were both working in the corporate world at that time still. And so Nicki's like, this is what we should be doing all the time instead of our corporate jobs. And I kind of like, yeah, wouldn't that be great? But you kind of have those velvet handcuffs. It's really hard to walk away from big salaries, good benefits, and all of that.
So that was like November, December of 2018. And then it was like 2009, February
of 2019.
Right. But we had started talking about it. We started talking about a business name. We started talking about where would we shoot. And we didn't have a studio space. We couldn't always use the vet clinic, the lobby after hours.
I remember when you both first moved into this space.
Yeah, that was. We ended up moving in here in October of 2019.
Okay, so you had
really
the studio
fast
before you came into the studios.
No.
So this was the initial studio.
This is our first studio. So January 2019, we started seriously talking about it. In February 2019, it was like, let's do this.
Yeah, that sort of everything aligned for us to leave the corporate world, and then at that time, number one, weather was nice, so we were able to shoot outside, and so we were doing some test shooting and location scouting, and our plan at that time was actually going to be to convert Nicki's garage into a studio for those times when we needed to be indoors. And she also has a very large backyard, so we were talking about just creating some good shooting spots in her yard. But also there was also some trepidation with that, because a lot of photographers have home studios and it's great, but there are also challenges with that. I mean, clients need to use a restroom, and so they have to go into your home, which means your house always has to look spotless. And then Knicki has her own set of pets, so it wasn't ideal, it wasn't perfect, but we were going to make it happen, and we were going to make it work. So
when you're looking for a studio space, what was on your checklist?
Affordability.
Well, it needed to be something that, we had a minimum size requirement.
Yeah.
And then
what was that?
It needed to be at least 15 feet long and at least 10 feet wide. And that was a bare minimum. And then we've realized now that we were underestimating our needs. But
was that number based on your lighting setup, your backdrops, or based on the fact there's two of you?
It was based on the square footage I was utilizing at my husband's office that I made work. So I knew that worked. Parking, a restroom, and it needed to be a space that was dog friendly, because a lot of places wouldn't allow pets. And as a matter of fact, I had been eyeing these studios for a while, and I had gone online and looked at the application process, and on the application process it said pets aren't allowed. So I kind of had ruled it out. But I thought one day we were driving by, I'm like, Knicki, let's just go check it out. I'm just curious to see what it's like, just to get a baseline of what studios are going for and all of that. And so we knocked on the door.
Bobby.
Bobby Rydell is one of the artists here. He's now living in, I think, Tennessee.
I think he's in Tennessee. Yeah. He's so great.
Yeah. So he showed us around.
Yeah, he showed us around. And, we mentioned earlier that how things just kind of quickly lined up for us. And it's been like that this whole time. But he ended up knowing his wife is related to somebody.
Susie's a delight.
Susie's
she's amazing.
Related to somebody that I know back in Oregon.
Wow.
And I come from a very tiny town in Oregon. I shouldn't ever run into anybody from there. So for me, that was like, oh, we are where we are supposed to be. Mm-hmm. This is it. This is
right.
family.
Yeah. So he showed us around, and I said, wow, we'd really love to be in here, but I know there's a no pet policy. And he's like, what are you talking about? Everybody brings their pets here. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we found out that somebody was probably going to be moving out in a few months. So we put in an application. And our application was accepted. Thank you, John Gascott.
Yes, thank you, John.
And when we first moved in, we actually moved into a different space that's smaller than this one. And
so tiny.
And we were in that, but we made it work. But we knew pretty quick that as soon as this space, if and when the space opened up, the one that we're in right now, in right now, opened up, we were going to definitely be like, we would fight tooth and nail to get it.
And we got it.
And we got it just a few months later. And that was, that was like,
that was still 2019.
It was still 2019.
So it all lined up. And then, so we've been in here and we've been joking about, since then, raising the ceiling and having the whole building. And here we are.
And and
Laurie
so
has the whole
fast forward to
John.
To now. And
I didn't even realize these are drop ceilings, but because they're so tall.
Right. Our ceiling height right now is about 8.5, which for photography is not ideal. I mean, for a pet photographer, and if that's all you do, it's okay. But we also photograph people, and
you need more space.
We need more height because you want to get lights up high, and so we've gotten very creative with lighting. We've been able to make it work. It hasn't always worked as easily as we would like it to. So now that we actually own the building, along with John, we're going to be doing a renovation, hopefully starting in January, and expanding the space considerably.
So say you're starting your first photography studio. What are the first things you should buy, like to go from your home equipment to now you have a physical studio space where you'll be able to do things permanently? Like, what's the first thing you'd want to get?
So light. You have to.
Well, they're already shooting at home. You already have lights. What would you have if you came outside?
Some people may be doing natural light at home.
That's true.
So they might be using window light. I mean, the reality is that you need light of some sort. It can be window light. It can be natural light. It does limit, like you're going to just shoot somebody at midnight because you're not going to get that window light. But all the studio really is a space that you have that you have at hand anytime. So a lot of people think that when you're going to open a studio, you have to have a ton of stuff. The reality is you don't. You can paint your wall and make that your background. I mean, if you want variety, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. We paint our own canvas backdrops. So you can buy canvas and paint it how you want it to look. You can use seamless paper, but you don't have to have all the things, and you don't have to start out that way. Any kind of a background, and it can be a painted wall.
It can even be a brick wall. That reminds me of my first studio back in Oregon. We had nothing. I had 2 alien bees and a camera and a friend. And we got a great space that had brick walls and window light. And that's how I started. Our first piece of furniture was a headboard because I was doing boudoir. And the frame and like a mattress. And that was it.
What's an alien bee?
It's a brand of lights.
Okay.
So
sorry.
Alien bees are actually an amazing brand.
They're great.
Of lights. But they are definitely an entry level from a price point standpoint. But again, light is light. I don't you don't have to have the most expensive lights out there. You can buy used alien bees or, Godox, which are less expensive. You don't need to have pro photos and all of the super expensive lights. I mean, there's some bells and whistles that are great to have on those, but honestly, light is light. So whether you're using speed lights, which are the ones that you can put on top of a camera or move off camera, if it's continuous light, if you buy some LED and let's say you're shooting things that don't move a lot, you can get by with that continuous light because you don't need as much of it for a faster shutter speed. But I hear a lot of photographers that they are getting into it and they think they have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And the reality is you don't. Like one light with an umbrella, and you can do almost anything.
You can do a speed light and an umbrella. Like we were saying, she started off with a Home Depot light. I had a shop light that was my, at that time, husband's that I was using. Then got used. No, from there, he found at some auction some photographer's lights, probably from the 60s. I used those, the hot lamps, and then the used alien bees. So it's a process. You don't have to start off with the best stuff on the planet.
And there are some of the most lucrative artists, photographers out there that are doing a lot of magazine work, and they travel with 2 speed lights and a couple of umbrellas and a reflector. Like their entire kit fits in a bag that they can carry with them on a plane. So you don't have to have all the things. As a matter of fact, one of our most used pieces of equipment in the studio, I think it was $12 plus some tape. So it was it's literally white foam board from the dollar store that we've taped together with white tape to create what is called a V flat. And it's just basically this thing that folds into a V, and you can stack it against the wall. But when you want to use it, you bring it out. It forms a V, or actually ours forms a W because we made it bigger. And you just bounce light off of it. So you can take a small light and shine it on there, but it creates what we refer to as a big light source, which is a softer, more pleasing light. And like it was $1 a piece for, I guess they're $1.39 at the dollar store.
No, it's $1.25. Oh, but tax.
Yeah. So, but I mean, for a very small amount, one of our most used pieces of equipment is that. So
I saw this crazy thing on TikTok the other day it wouldn't work with dogs, but for product photography, just use a single light bulb and a very low exposure, and you can paint in a full film.
Yeah, light painting is an amazing way to get things done. And sometimes you don't want a lot of light. I mean, you might be you might want to get sort of a film noir look where you really do want just a single light.
I've used a lamp. I did some product shots, made my own little white softbox on my dining room table and had lamps on either side. You don't have. You can just start off with what you have.
I've shot like almost 1,000 pieces of jewelry in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it was jewelry.
And just on my dining room table with a tablecloth dropped in one light and just a bunch of like white 11 by 17 mailers to bounce it off.
It just bounces around and creates this nice, even overall light when you're doing product photography. And the biggest challenge is just looking out for your reflections when you're doing stuff that has a shiny surface. And once you understand how light works, you can use just about any light source. And it's not just light, it's also knowing how to take away light. So you use a piece of cardboard to block light, or something that absorbs the light, but it's all just understanding how light works. And there's a little bit of physics, but it's not hard physics. Once like the words sound hard, like angle of incidence and the inverse square law, but all it really means is you need to know how to deal with the direction of light and the quality of light, and there's just
how to direct it,
where to put it when you want a light source that feels soft, or when you want that hard sort of edgy light, like how that's kind of intuitively it doesn't work the way a lot of people think it would work. Like you want that soft light, you actually get your light source closer, and like the bigger the light source is relative to your subject, the softer the light's going to look. Versus if you want that hard light, you actually get your light source a little further away, and it's a smaller source relative to your subject. But once you just understand those basics, and you could literally, if you sat down and thought about it, or just watched a few tutorials and you're focused and you practice, I mean, you can figure it out pretty easily. And once you know that, you can use any kind of light in the whole world. A lot of fashion photographers don't use lights at all. They'll go downtown and they look at how light bounces off of the walls of buildings. So you might have a bright, harsh, sunny day, but if you get between 2 tall buildings, you don't have any direct light, but you get this amazing light bouncing back
from
and
the
forth
buildings.
between
It's
the buildings.
actually really pretty.
So,
well, I want to ask you specifically about. I imagine something that anyone with a photography studio has to deal with is when and why you upgrade pieces of equipment. So, do you have like a dedicated, allocated percentage of each bit of income that is dedicated towards new equipment, so that you can plan for improvements, even if you don't have a specific item in mind? How do you prioritize what to get, what to upgrade?
We do have that on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, yes. So we're pretty diligent about knowing our numbers. We kind of decided to do that pretty early on. So when we first decided to form Urban Dog Studio, a lot of our decisions or our initial thoughts were based on stuff I'd been doing in the past. Before, when it was just myself and my mental data, whatever, was kind of old. But before we even started seeing clients, we realized, no, we need to know our numbers before we make any financial decisions. So before we decided what we would be charging, what we would be spending, we needed to know our fixed costs, our variable costs, and then how we were going to allocate funds, because we knew we would be buying additional equipment. We would need to purchase marketing materials. We would need to purchase insurance and also replacement stuff. So we've had, over time, camera equipment fails. Like we both have new camera. We purchased new camera bodies. We purchased some new lenses.
We've had to do new
because
lights.
We shoot so much, we wear it out. So, just replacing equipment and replacing lights, because when we first opened, we're still using some lights that are over 10 years old, and just over time, things break and fail. So we definitely sort of build that in. So we have our little stash of funds that we use to purchase equipment and things like that. And, we allocate that every year, knowing that we're going to need to spend a certain amount. And so far we've been pretty good about
We're pretty good.
guessing.
We've had a couple of, wouldn't it be fun to have this piece of equipment? So
we've done a little splurging.
We've had some fun.
Sure.
We have a piece that
We're girls.
we have a giant modifier that we got. It's amazing. You watch the video and you're like, oh, I have to have this. It was one of those, like,
it was an impulse purchase.
It was a very impulsive. Well, it wasn't that impulsive because you saw it and I saw it. We talked about it and then we impulse bought it.
It wasn't something we needed, but it was something that would be cool to have. But we found that our current space is a little
doesn't fit.
It's a little small for it. It's we can use it, but it's very cumbersome.
Do you want to say what it is? Or
oh, what's it called? We call it the mattress. It looks like a giant blow-up mattress. It's amazing. It's an 8x8 square softbox is what it is.
Oh.
And you're able to put two lights on the other side. So what it does is it just creates this giant, beautiful soft light, which is really nice for photographing a family or a larger group. Or if you just really want to create a look that has almost the quality of outdoor light, like on an overcast day. Just this really beautiful, soft light. So it's beautiful when we've used it. It's just very cumbersome to use in our space. We need about...
So it's 8 feet tall and we have
8.5 foot ceilings.
But in the new space, it's going to be out all the time. So you have to come by and look at it.
Yeah, it'll probably stay up and ready to go all the time because it'll be that useful for us.
So like about 6 months ago, I started actually allocating percentages of all my income for different portions of my business.
Yeah.
And so I guess, I don't know if I grossly exaggerated the amount of operational expenses that I need to save for, but I've got like surplus that I need to spend on equipment. Mm-hmm. So I could just let it sit there, but I want to buy shit.
Right.
So like,
yeah.
So how do you prioritize what you want to buy, or is it just whatever breaks?
Yeah, I mean, I think we look at things like if we feel like we need, we look at what our needs are, and it might not be equipment. It might be we need to do some marketing.
Okay.
And so we might allocate that money towards some marketing.
So your marketing budget then is fluid throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of based on how busy we are or how busy we want to be. Like right now, with everything we have getting ready to start with our renovation and everything, we're actually we're not marketing because our schedule is a little uncertain. So we don't plan to be doing a whole lot the first 2 months of the year because we're going to be really busy, hopefully, with under construction.
With other things,
yeah. And then, it might be allocated towards a personal project that we want to do, that we sort of jointly want to do. And one of our projects was our book during COVID because we couldn't have clients in the studio. So, of course, as soon as we get in and we get set up, we start really rocking and rolling. We've got clients booked and the business is really starting to take off. Then shutdown happened. So we couldn't have anybody in here. So we did a book project because it was all outdoor shooting, almost exclusively outside. And so we published Dog for the Berg. And there was a bit of outlay on the front end of that because we had to pay for printing and a lot of things, a lot of administrative stuff to make it happen. So, of course, we have to pay ourselves when we weren't having, it was going to be a delay before we were going to have revenue coming in. So,
so when you pay yourselves, is it like an even amount each month or? No,
it's kind of based, it's based on production. So we sort of pay ourselves after we pay all of our fixed costs and on our cost of goods and all of that. But we kind of have a percentage that it's been working out towards, and it depends on who's doing what for a shoot. So like there might be a shoot that I do where Knicki assists and she'll help with a sales session or something, but I'm doing like 70%, she's doing 30%, or vice versa. And it might be she's doing a shoot. Like I don't really even get involved with a boudoir shoot that she does. I mean, that's just like, I don't need to be there. She's got it down to a science. So what we get reimbursed based on the sales from that shoot is based on our the amount of work that we put into it. So we know that if you're doing the editing, it's X percent. If you're doing the, if you're the primary shooter, it's X percent. Yeah. If you're assisting, it's this. If you're also a second shooter, it's that. So, it just kind of works out that way.
Did it take a lot of iterations to end up in that situation?
A little bit. Not
We've
too
had
much.
to tweak it. I mean, we always started off. We started off with that idea, and then we've just kind of tweaked it over time.
But I imagine that's going to be a difficulty that anyone who is starting to start an art business with another person is going to have. So it's pretty great to see that you have a system that's working out so well for the two of you.
And I will tell you that we are the exception. We are the exception when it comes to two photographers working in a studio, and they're both shooters. There are a lot of husband and wife teams that work together. And of course, that's all going into one pot anyway. There are other partnerships, but usually one person is doing admin, marketing, where the other person's doing the shooting or whatever. It's very rare that you'll have two photographers that actually can continue to get along and agree and do things. And that's not to say that we don't have our discussions, but I kind of don't recommend it for most people. I mean,
I don't think it works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, do you find you have like niches that you specialize in that like, this is not the kind of thing I want to get my hands involved with, I'm just going to hand it off to you?
100%. Yeah, because Nikki's great with, like, we just did a shoot the other night.
We did a homecoming dance where we did...
Which is not something we would normally do.
They're formal photographs, and it was so much fun. I love that age group. I love young adults. I like kids.
Wow,
I like kids. And young adults, I love 13-year-old, not 13-year-olds, but young adults.
We're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh my gosh.
It's fine as long as you don't get specific.
Right. No. So young adults, like, she likes dogs, and I love dogs, but I can say Laurie absolutely loves dogs, maybe a little bit more than me. And so when it comes to kids and that type of thing, I will take that, and she'll obviously.
She just relates to them super well. Like she's like the Pied Piper for tweens and teens. I mean, they just love her.
Fun.
And so she interacts with them. She gets them to pose really well. So like, I didn't shoot a thing. I just sat there and I was just uploading. I was taking memory cards and putting photos into Lightroom and doing a quick edit and posting them in a pixie set for the group. So by the time we were done. Like, those photos were already delivered by the time the night was done. So it worked out great.
The kids had a blast. And so that's where, like, we have this really good yin yang. There's not a lot of ego going on where she's sitting over there working on the computer and I'm taking the photos. And then it's the same thing. If she's taking the photos and I'm assisting, there's not that ego.
So you're able to edit them as you're taking the photos?
Yeah. So Knicki would
handing off.
She would pull out a. So
you don't do like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or.
No, we didn't do it.
No, because then you're kind of relying on your internet connection and everything, and that can be a problem. And we still had to rely on that to upload from the computer to our online delivery system, which is PixieSat. But no, Knicki would just shoot for about 20-30 minutes. We'd trade out the memory card, and while she was shooting the next batch, I was just taking those photos in.
Is that because the memory card was full, or because
no, just every 20 minutes?
Okay,
we just wanted
to
keep
stuff to keep working on.
Yeah. So we just wanted to keep it moving, and
just an interesting process.
We wanted to have like a good maybe 20-minute turnaround for the kids.
Wow.
So they would come in, do some photo, do 3 frames. I was doing like 3 frames in the beginning with the couples and singles and
how many
kids.
kids were there?
It was a small group.
It was a small group, but it was a lot of kids.
It ended up being,
I'm just fascinated by all the logistics of that.
It was a couple hundred. It was a couple hundred photos.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said like 2 or 3 photos per kid?
Yeah. Per group. Because
per
there were
group.
groups.
Okay.
And then a couple of them kind of came in again. So the way it worked is they came in, we had a QR code set up, they registered, it sent them a link to the Pixie set or the online gallery.
Nice.
And so the couple would come get their photo taken. we'd tell them, give us 15, 20 minutes. I'd shoot a few more kids, then hand off the card to Laurie, which put a new card in. And then she's tweaking everything and getting it uploaded. And then those kids were like, oh, and they would come back.
Because they were looking at their photos that were
They
on
were
and like,
seeing
oh my
them
God,
that
these are awesome. We
fast.
want more. So a lot of the kids were repeaters.
Yeah.
The class,
What kind of editing can you do in like 15, 20 minutes?
it's very quick. I mean, it was basic. Like, it was just cropping and then just doing a little color correcting and levels
I
adjustments.
assume you were on a tripod, Knicki?
On a tripod, the light was set up great.
And you're set
the
on
background.
manual, so like everything is the
Everything
same
is
settings?
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
figured that out beforehand.
I mean, we changed some things, like for larger groups, we were having to make some adjustments. We were having to pull lights out and sometimes switching, because we were primarily shooting in a vertical format, but every once in a while having to switch the camera over to horizontal and pulling the lights out, or some of the set we would have to arrange for larger
we were
groups.
prepared for. I was thinking, maybe 2 couples, little groups, and then the principal came and asked us if we could do all of the staff. I'm like, sure. How many are here? 12.
Right. So
12.
So we're having to,
So
we had to do a little bit.
We had to punt a little bit during those moments, which we're really good at. And we had, at one point, a whole bunch of kids tried to get in one picture. I was like, this is too many kids. So at one point, I was like, no more than 5. You have to. And then they still had to squeeze in.
And then we would throw in a 6th or 7th one. But if you tell them no more than 10, you'd have 20 trained to get it.
Right.
But and they loved being able to get those photos right away. Now, this was nothing like one of our normal shoots.
Sure.
It's not normally a studio shoot at all.
One of our studio shoots, we do.
Well, let's talk about what is the general process when someone says, I'm going to hire Urban Dog Studio? What is the first step?
So our the main session that we typically do, and we have a few other variations, but the main one that we do, we refer to as our signature session. A client will reach out to us, and we have a discovery call. So we find out what it is they're looking for, and if we feel like it's
even before we get to that, how does this client typically find you?
A Google search, word of mouth, client referral. There's a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's like social media,
from an item that we've donated to an auction.
Yeah, it might be they want an auction session or whatever.
Do you track,
or they saw us.
Do you track what brought that person in?
Yeah.
So you look at percentages or something at the end of the year? Or
yeah. So about 50% of our clients actually find us through Google. So they're looking for a pet photographer. We rank really well in SEO. So yay. So we rank well with SEO. So they find us. And then the other half, it's a mix of client referral and just mostly word of mouth, or because we've donated something to a charity auction. And
so you get a lot of returns from those, then?
We do. And those sometimes are our best clients who refer us the most.
Interesting.
So those clients will reach out, and during the discovery call, we just find out if they're the right fit. So some people are looking for just 1 or 2 photos, or they want to just go and have a 1-hour shoot, and they want to get all the digitals on a card, and that's really not our business model. Yeah. So we'll refer them out to somebody else. There are a few other wonderful pet photographers in the area who do that, and we're happy to refer, because we're not going to be the answer for everybody who wants pet photography. And what I love about our pet photographer community here is that there's a lot more collaboration than there is competition. So everybody is very supportive of each other, and we want to see all of us be successful. I mean, we love the fact that we have the more pet photographers we have in the area, the more people know it's a thing. Mm-hmm. So it benefits us. So,
and when I personally come from, and I know Laurie does too, when another photographer does well, so do we. Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned that you're shooting by sharing with you and collaborating with you, and your photography getting better, one that helps us grow, and everybody's growing and everybody's getting better. And I don't think that it should be, the craft should not be kept, behind closed doors and, you have to figure it out yourself. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to have to go through 4 different light sets.
Right. Mm-hmm. And people helped us along the way.
Yeah.
So, But anyway, so we have that conversation. We find out if we're the right sort of
good fit,
the right session type that they're looking for. And our typical client is somebody who wants a very custom session. They want a lot of one-on-one time. We are very, very high service. So we will go to our client's house and help them pick out a wardrobe. Oh. We will do a pre-session consultation.
Wardrobe for the dogs?
For the people.
For the people.
Oh,
if the people are in it.
People are always attached.
As I glance around looking at all these pet photos, none of them are wearing clothes.
No, but we've gone to the house, and we've also even looked at the walls and looked at the rooms, and helped figure out what do you want in this space.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and we'll shoot for it.
Right. Yeah, because we want to know what their decor and what their tastes are. So if somebody tells us, I really want to have, a beautiful portrait of me and my dog in our family room over the sofa, we need to know what that room looks like.
Yeah.
So whether they take a photo of it and send it to us, or we go out and we take a look at it, because the backdrop, how we approach the shoot, how we frame it, all of those things are going to be dictated by that person's personal taste.
And pricing is as a package. It's not like per hour.
It's not per hour, but it's per product. So we have a session fee for that particular session. Our current session fee is $800, but $600 converts to a product credit. So they can apply that towards wall art. They can apply that towards an album, a folio box.
Oh, so you are delivering like physically printed objects.
products,
right? And we do digital packages as well. But what we don't do is we don't just hand over every photo we took.
Right.
We just want our clients to have the images that they love. And we don't want them just digital.
Well, the magic happens in the editing, right?
Well, the magic happens in the physical product when you see it on a wall. Yeah. I mean, we love
it's
seeing
all a
things
process. I would say the magic happens the entire process.
That's true.
The magic happens on set when you're bonding with the animal and having a good time and you're having that experience. It becomes a play date. And then they come back and I'm jumping the gun, but they see their images. And then the final, where I guess the product of the magic is the printed image. And we want them to have something tangible to touch and feel and put on the wall.
I guess you also want them to have positive memories of every single step along the
way.
way.
It is not. We're not providing.
Yeah, you're not just focusing.
We're not providing photographs. We are providing an experience. We're providing, memories and I mean, it's from start to finish. So
it's a play date.
When they come in for the pre-session consult, if they come into the studio versus us going out there, it is a fun play date for the dog, and we go over everything. I mean, to the point of, you need to get a manicure and a pedicure, and we just
for the dogs.
No,
for the people.
If the people.
Sorry.
So
what percentage is dogs? What percentage?
So every dog comes with a human, and we always encourage people to be in the photos with their dog.
Oh, okay.
Even if they don't ever show it to anybody else, but we want to capture that bond. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? It's your relationship with your pet. So we strongly encourage that. Now, not everybody does it,
but we invite them. So if you wanted to have a picture. Let's say you wanted to bring in your dog Fluffy, and you bring Fluffy and we do the pre-session consult. We invite you to, when Fluffy comes in for their shoot, if you'd like to be in, this is, some wardrobe ideas and have a mani-pedi and, all of that other advice. And sometimes people are like, oh, no, thank you at all. And then other people are like, okay, maybe. And then they'll take us up and say, yeah, will you help me pick out clothes? Or I did this. And they'll come prepared, and sometimes we've been out there shooting Fluffy, and the person's like, yeah, I want in now too.
And we always tell them, even though they'll tell us, I don't want to be in it, we're like, okay, well, we're going to tell you how to prepare anyway, because you might change your mind. And we don't force or pressure, but we encourage them to consider it, because 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when that pet's no longer there, they're going to really cherish that photograph that they have of them with their pet. Because most of us, we take photos of our pets even with our phones, but we're never in the photos. Right?
Yeah,
it's like
the same thing
with
like kids. You're always the mom. Yeah.
So we do encourage it. So when I say we're going to tell them to do a mani-pedi, and the reason why we do that is a lot of the photographs, you see them holding their pet, so their hands are in it, or they're down on the floor with them, or they're down by their feet, and we see their toes in it. So, and it's also a great excuse to go get a mani-pedi. Even if we don't partner
with any salons for that?
We do have a hair and makeup artist that we
hair and makeup, but not a salon for mani-pedis.
Okay. Right. Everybody, most women have their place. Most women have their favorite. Okay.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. But anyway, so sort of getting back to the process. So we do the pre-session consult. We let them know what the process is going to be. They'll come in for their shoot. We really don't put a time limit on it, but it usually it's almost always 2 hours. I mean, we spend a lot of time because sometimes it takes that long for pets to really relax into it. Sometimes we have multiple pets. We want to make sure. And then a lot of times people are doing wardrobe changes. And we do a backdrop change.
And a lot of times we're just having so much fun.
Right. There's that.
We're having fun and they're talking. By the time people leave that shoot, we're friends.
How much time do you usually allocate to the actual shooting? Of a signature session?
On average for a signature session, it's probably 10 hours from start to finish. From the time,
so they're getting the whole day.
Oh,
Well,
no, not shooting.
No.
No.
From
Sorry.
the pre-session consult to the shoot to editing to product fulfillment.
No, but
and
it's
delivery.
a shoot, probably camera pickup to the end, a good hour.
Well, it can last. It depends on what the shoot is, and like sometimes a dog is done, and sometimes we'll have 5 dogs. So I mean, it just depends. But we don't put a time limit on it. Is our point. We're going to shoot as long as we need to shoot, and then usually a little bit on top of that.
Because we usually like book maybe 2 per day. If that's
no, for those it's 1 a day. We don't have. We're done. We're spent. By the time we do a signature session, we are done.
They're
and then
easy hard.
Yeah,
easy hard.
And then they'll usually come back a week or 2 later, and we review their. We'll go through and we'll whittle down their set to the best photos, and then again, depending on how many animals and stuff, that we don't have a set number. Like we don't say we're going to show you 50 or anything like that. We're going to show them what we think are the best photos from the bunch, and it can range anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred if they had 3 or 4 dogs, or they did multiple wardrobe changes and whatever.
Yeah, I do want to point or put in on that one. When we first started, we whittled down the proof set fairly low compared to what we're showing now. And then we discovered that people were picking photos that we would have never picked. Just based on, we pick our favorites, and the client typically picks something different than what we would have thought as a favorite. So we started including even more. So maybe like in the beginning, we started off with 50 and now we'll show you 90.
Right. And
we've expanded it.
It's those subtle little expression changes that will really resonate with them. That we might have had like 5 photos that we thought were almost identical or very similar. So we'll whittle it down and just show them one. And then we realize, wait a minute. It's that little squint of the eye or something that's really reminding them. Oh, that's the look I get every morning when I say hi to my dog. And for our clients who were doing albums, they actually really love the outtakes. So we started including a lot of the funny outtakes, knowing that there's a good chance they're just going to say no, but they were fun and they were funny. So we at least wanted them to see them, and let them pick and decide if they wanted it in there. But sometimes it's like where all you can see in the frame is the dog's butt because they're running off the set.
And it's just funny and they love it. And when we're going through the photos to build that proof set, we're looking for technical details.
Right.
Whereas, when you're as a client, I'm assuming that they're looking for, again, like she said, that little twinkle, that little part,
emotional connection.
that a little emotional connection to the photo. And we are, going for details. So,
and it is very different. It's one thing that's very different about photographing pets versus, and it might be similar for photographing little kids. I just haven't done enough to say that, it's the same. But with photographing pets, it's like you can't just say stand on the X like you can with people. Like dogs are just, and we don't confine the dogs. We like them to do what they're going to do. And if it's a dog that's super jumpy and hyper, we're going to photograph them being jumpy and hyper. And what that means is we have a lot of bad frames. Like we'll miss focus, or the dogs, like I said, they're jumping out of the frame, or
what they do.
Slobber's flying, which we kind of love, but clients don't always like that. But my point is that with people, you can pretty much show almost every single frame. With dogs, because they can be literally running circles around us, and we're photographing them, trying to photograph them just as they hit the right spot on the set. We don't always catch focus, or it's a challenge. Like it's not 100%. So we usually we'll get rid of anything that's just technically a bad photo. And here's the thing, and it's a little bit different. If you're a client if you're a photographer who's mainly serving a client who just wants digital files and they're just going to show them on Instagram, you can get away with a lot of things. Our clients, and what we're shooting for is we're shooting for somebody we want every photo that we deliver is something that could be easily printed,
large.
50, 60 inches on the long end, no problem. So a photo that might technically be just fine for somebody who's using them on social media or whatever, or even just like a branding.
It can look fantastic on Instagram, fantastic
but
on
it won't
Facebook.
Hold up.
But if you try to print it, say like the examples that we have on the walls in here, it's not going to hold up. It's not going to look good.
It's going to fall apart. Yeah.
So what type of, you mentioned that there's like products that they can spend some of that as credits to purchase. How is that coordinated? Like, are you printing those yourself? Is it with another service?
We use,
labs.
We use professional labs. So we have a couple of different places where we do our wall art. It might be that we order the print from one of our labs and we have a local framer do it. We also have another vendor that we can use for framed wall art.
Is that all seamlessly connected to your website, or is it?
No.
They come in here. And
We
help
do
us.
a design consultation.
Okay.
So we've either gone to their home or they have sent us photos per our instructions, and we'll actually pull in the photos of the room where they're going to hang the wall art, and we have a way to do that so that we can then pull the framed artwork in to scale on their wall, so they can see exactly what it's going to look like to scale. So they won't be scratching their head wondering if they've chosen the right size or if this frame looks great. So, but we basically put on our interior design hat at that point, and we're helping them select the right frames to coordinate. Like, let's say they're doing a gallery wall, you don't necessarily want everything framed in the same frame. We help them pick out frames that we know coordinate and go well together, and to put together arrangements that are going to look incredible on the wall. And we will sometimes spend easily 3 or 4 hours with a client during their design session. So this is after the shoot, after they've chosen the photos that they want. We'll spend that much time. Or if it's a client that's doing an album, usually they'll leave the design of the album to us, but we spend a lot of time doing that. And it's still based on the things we've learned about that client. Like, let's say it's a client who their home is very modern and sort of clean and simple and all of that. How we design that album is it's going to match that aesthetic. If it's a client who's has more of a warm, very earthy feel, like we might have multiple.
And we have swatch kits, so we help them pick out the different covers and the interior and the.
But even the design of it, like we might have more images per page for those clients, where we're doing more storytelling versus it being more portrait on each page. So all of that comes into play. So you can see why we need to get to know our clients really well.
Yeah.
Because we take that to the end. What we never want to have happen is for that client's photos to be sitting on a hard drive or even more so thumb drive in a drawer, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
And having had experiences with my own family, losing my parents and then not being able to even find the family photos that my dad took the last 10 years of his life because they were all digitally, never printed them. Couldn't find them. I don't know.
Gone. So it's gone.
But I have photos of my grandparents and my father when he was a child, a small baby from over 100 years ago. Well, not me, my dad wasn't that old, but I mean, I have family photos dating back that long because they were printed, and I still have them. And my nephew and great nephew, and they're going to get those. They're going to have those, but they're not going to have that last 10 years, of digital photos that just. They're lost in the ether somewhere.
So yeah, it's digital is forever, but
it's
only as long as you can access it. And she's right, as long as you're printing it. I have photos from my great grandmother that she had, and they're priceless to me.
Right,
and
those are the first things you grab when your house is burning down, right?
Yeah,
it's a print.
So,
and that's what.
And it worries me because kids today, remember when they take when I say kids. Younger people who didn't didn't have that excitement of taking a roll of film to a lab to get it printed, because that was the only way you could see your photos.
Yeah,
and they're literally taking hundreds and hundreds of photos every week, and they're not printing them. Like, what are the odds in 20 years they're still going to be able to access those photos? I mean, when I first started shooting professionally, I was delivering to clients on floppy disks and then CDs. And then,
and CDs, as you know, they corrupt. I can pull out a whole bunch, and you can't read all of the files. And it's been 15 years.
So it hasn't even been that long, and that technology it's just obsolete. You have to go and go to a thrift store to find a way to read it or pay crazy amounts.
The memory goes bad, or if you've got it plugged in and there's a lightning strike and you have a power surge and all that,
and
device is gone.
Who's really as good as they should be about backing up and copying to new media every time something becomes obsolete. I mean, professional photographers are, because we understand that, but the average person doesn't do that.
But I think you understand it because you lost something. I have backups now because I have a nice little silver box of about 17,000 digital images that I can't access because I didn't back them up on something newer. So I learned that lesson.
So you guys don't do cloud storage?
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm saying that back in the day, I have this nice
everything's
little hard
backed
drive.
up 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Now
we have on-site, off-site, and cloud storage. So,
but now, not 15 years ago.
So is there someone whose business you've been, maybe inadvertently, maybe on purpose, modeling your business after?
I think we've picked things from different things.
Mm-hmm.
So number one is just things that we just evolved. I don't even know how it came about over years, but there are.
I don't know any other double photographers that.
I don't know any other partners like us, but in like
that shoot different genres. Yeah.
But there are all sorts of things online now that have great courses, like a business course. Like if somebody was just starting out and they wanted to know if they're doing regular portrait photography, I would like Sue Bryce has really great courses.
Oh yeah,
from
she does.
posing, like all the technical side. There are a number of other groups that Kelby is great if you want to learn editing. Matt Kloskowski, Kelby, one it used to be Photoshop USA or whatever. There are a lot of great resources for learning how to edit and how to process photos. Lots of great online courses for that.
Business-wise, there's the podcast, Andrew.
Andrew Helmich has an amazing podcast. That's the business of photography, and he has photographers from different genres on all the time. So there are all these wonderful online resources to get inspiration.
And then pick and choose what works for us.
Yeah, and then from a business standpoint, Megan DePiro has a great offers great courses if you're a pet photographer just starting out. Really, really good content for somebody just starting out with pet photography is Hair of the Dog photography.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like tons and tons of resources, which is amazing. I wish I'd had that when I first got started.
Yeah.
And pet photography
they did, but I didn't know where to get it.
And pet photography wasn't even a thing. Like people like, what? You're a pet photographer?
My dad's got this like 10-book set on photography because he used to own one of those like tourist photo studios in Key West. And people dress like the Old West.
Fun.
I love that.
I just did one of those
I did that in the
ago.
80s. I did that.
No, I just did it a couple months ago. I loved it.
And he would print on like large format Polaroids or like an 8x10 Polaroid.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, so he's got this huge collection of photography books, and like now that I'm actually playing with photography, I want to read those. But I imagine most of that stuff's going to go over my head because it's all film based.
There are two books I recommend to people a lot. If you're just starting out and you don't know how to turn your camera onto manual, I recommend that you get a book. It's called Lighting Essentials.
See the one, Light Magic? It's
and then I'm trying to remember the author of that book is a great photographer. I just can't think of his name right now, but it's Lighting Essentials, and I think he's got like the 3rd or 4th edition out. But it's great for people that need to learn how to like the exposure triangle, so knowing shutter speed, aperture. And
I forget that every time I start using my camera.
Yeah, so Lighting Essentials is great. And then if you really want to master light, and you don't have to do it all at once, but there's a book, and it's very dry. But it's called Light, Science, and Magic.
That's what it is.
And it has really great examples of how to shoot a lot of different things.
I think it's a great book.
It is. It's not super colorful. They don't have a lot of like color photos in it, but it
has the lighting diagrams and explains some of the science on it. It's
And if you just if you're just doing portrait photography, again, Sue Bryce, her online courses are greght because then you can actually see how she's setting up lights for Paramount lighting and Rembrandt lighting and clamshell lighting. So all of the things that a regular like a human portrait photographer would do. I mean you can't go wrong with one of her courses either. But Light, Science, and Magic is going to teach you how to do product photography, just about any lighting scenario you could possibly imagine.
Also, just putting your camera on manual and
experimenting.
Yeah.
So the difference between us and it's the yin yang thing. Obviously, Laurie is very book and technical, and I call her a gearhead. And I am very, let's see what this button does.
I know personally, like because I go to the Tampa Bay Society of Photographic Arts meetings a lot, who Jose Gomez runs, and he's been on the podcast. I'm always impressed with his photos because he doesn't worry about things being clear, about there not being noise. And like I'm terrified of there being noise in my photos, so I really need to get more comfortable. So
that's where
around.
You learn the rules, and then you break every single one of them.
Right. I mean, I think I'm not going to tell anybody how they should do it, but if you want to have the most control, the most creative control, where you can actually decide how you want your photo to look, you should know how to do things from a technical standpoint. You should know how to not have noise in your photo. And how not to have motion blur, and how to deal with a low light situation or a fast moving subject, or how to get the greatest depth of field or the shallowest depth of field. So knowing all of those things, I think, is important. Like, the more you know your craft, the more you can then create what you want to create.
Right.
And it becomes intentional instead of accidental, because as a professional, you have to be able to produce consistently good quality professional work. You can't just always get away with spray and pray.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
you can't just, you know, hope that you get something.
Playing and practicing, I accidentally discovered shallow depth of field because I bought a lens that was 2.8 and I just knew I needed more light. So that's why I bought the lens. And then I knew at 2.8, there's different, steps that, I could have the light look good. And then I discovered, when I do that, it's really soft in the background. And look at the bokeh and look at this. And now if you look at my catalog of all the photos I've taken ever since I discovered shallow depth of field and then how much I loved it, now I shoot that because I know exactly what I want. I want to look exactly a certain way, but I stumbled on that at first. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm saying you practice and you're like, this didn't work, this worked. And then you fall in love with something. And, for me personally, I have a grass series that I've been shooting
20 years.
Yeah. And you'll find a subject that you will fall in love with. And it sounds ridiculous to say, but I could go sit for hours in the grassy little parking lot here and shoot. Mm-hmm. So you just practice and play. It's playing.
Yeah. So it's, and there's that whole Bob Ross thing too, a happy little accident.
Yeah.
You gotta,
holy smokes.
And that's part of the excitement too, is experimenting. Like, I don't know how some photographers just always stick to the rules. Like I said, knowing how your equipment works is great, but
then you can play.
Yeah.
As busy as you two are in the studio, do you allocate time to play?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we both always have some personal projects going on. I've got a series of sort of abstract seascapes I've been working on. Oh. I actually have a project. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but a personal project I'm doing with John Gascott as a muse. Mm-hmm. He's been on your podcast, an amazing artist.
It's a really cool project too.
And and I still do wildlife and nature photography, and I still do conservation photography. And that's not something. I mean, sometimes I'm showing and selling, but it's not something I plan to do. Like, I just do it because I absolutely love doing it. It's very meditative for me, and it's a great excuse to get outside and photograph birds and nature and wildlife and
landscapes. She likes birds.
Well, I mean, I'll photograph it. Yeah,
it's a teaser
to get outside with my camera and shoot, or just walking downtown and doing some street shooting. Cool. And by mixing things up too, I think it helps us come back with a fresh perspective for our clients' shoots too.
Yeah, there's things that I've shot outside of the studio, and then we get a dog out on the set. I'm like, I saw this. Let's try it with a dog.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Lauren
having us.
and Knicki, you're amazing.
Yeah.
I know we could go on for like another 9 hours.
Right? We could.
I don't want to ruin your evening. So.
We could definitely chat. If you come in the studio, you will find out we can chat.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Art for Profit's Sake is recorded through Riverside FM, distributed through Spotify for podcasters, and edited on Adobe Audition. The music is provided by Old Romans. If you learned anything useful or found this podcast helpful, please rate and review us 5 stars. If you want to learn more about me or my art, head over to chainassembly.com.